Hello and welcome to Crafting a Revolution, the podcast. My name is Katie Freeman and I'm one of your hosts. Every Wednesday and Friday, we bring you interviews of female and non-binary makers of all kinds from all over the world. Today's guest is Christy Wilkerson of Wilkerson Handmade Goods, or Wilkerson Handmade. Sorry about that, Christy. Christy is what I would call a digital fabricator. She's making beautiful wooden pieces using a CNC and a laser predominantly, and selling that work online and across craft markets. So it was fun getting to chat with Christy about getting into kind of the digital fabricating space, and also like her experience kind of with woodworking for quite some time in her life. Before we hop on into the interview with Christy, though, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to the patrons over on Patreon. So thank you so much, Lee at Lee Runyon, Annette 513 Woodworks, Katie Thompson, Women of Woodworking, Kevin Lefty's Woodshop, Christy Twisted Twine, Jeremy Speece, Sammy Go Sammy Lee, Rachel Moody Makes, Bonnie Toolmom Bonnie, toolmomstore.com, Laura Oakley Soap Company, Brandy Studio Obey, Lee the Rainbow Carver, Ellen Little Bear Furniture, and Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you all so very much for your continued support, helping to produce 2 episodes every week. If you would like to get your name added to this list, you certainly can. Just head on over to patreon.com/crafting a revolution. And no matter what tier you pick, your name will get added to the top of the list and you will be thanked at the top of each episode. All right, with no further ado, let's head on into the interview with Christy. Well, Christy, I like to start by having my guests introduce themselves. So would you do that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Christy Wilkerson and I own Wilkerson Handmade. I am a woodworker who kind of dabbled in a little bit here and there, but since I'm finding my niche in CNC work and in, trays, especially wood, and then I kind of do some laser work on top of that too.
Excellent. So does that mean you have a separate laser from your
I do. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a universal laser and then I have a Stinger CNC.
Okay. And then is this are you living the dream? Are you full-time doing this, or do you
I am full-time doing this. Dream is a little bit stressful. But I think anyone who works for themselves will say that. I mean, yeah. You're happy doing what you're doing, but at the same time, when you're not working for a company and you're guaranteed that monthly paycheck every single month, it could get a little stressful, especially when COVID hit.
Yes. Yes, yeah. To all of that. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to step back and ask the broader question. I want to know the story of Christy from baby, itty bitty baby Christy, where
we're going way back.
Yeah, where you grew up to all the way up to how did you get to be working for yourself?
Okay. Yeah, so I was basically born in Georgia, but immediately moved up to Ohio. My dad was from down there. Parents met at Georgia Tech, and both worked for P&G, which brought us to Cincinnati. So I've lived here my whole life. Was down there long enough to get a really horrible Southern accent and then lose it very quickly when I moved up north. Milk had 3 syllables. Mm-hmm. I was that kid that danced. I was a competitive dancer. I've always been artsy. And that's kind of something I think I take after my mom, because she's always been the craft or artsy person. And all throughout my childhood, I was very artsy. And then when I went to college, I actually started as pre-physical therapy because I've had so many injuries in my life. Mm-hmm. And very quickly was like, this isn't passion anymore. I need art. And I went back to marketing advertising because I can't draw a stick figure for crap. They have very uneven limbs, maybe a few extra fingers, not symmetrical at all. So I was like, how can I incorporate art and my love of art, but not have to do art? Mm-hmm. And that became my degree, and I don't use it.
You kind of do social media.
Yes, I market myself. Yes. I don't use it the way it was intended to be used. I actually graduated at the height of the recession in 2011. And I was told over and over again, you have too much, not enough experience, try again. And people kept telling me, well, get more education. So I went back for my master's degree, and I got that. And now I heard too much education, not enough experience. We can't hire you legally for an internship because you have a graduate degree and you have a master's, which means we have to pay you. And I'm like, I don't care. Just give me the job. And that very quickly proved to be I need an income. And my dad has always been a woodworker. He's a hobbyist woodworker. His dad taught him. My dad is an engineer, so very engineer-minded individual, like very stereotypical engineer. And he just loves the way things work. He loves, the very analytical side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not me. But I've kind of been tinkering with him in the shop, for a while, but not very seriously. Just little projects here and there. But he took me to a makerspace open house. My mom and I both went with him. We're like, well, let's make it a family outing.
Mm-hmm.
And we went, and the very first room was the laser. And I was kind of like, bye guys, see you later. I found I'm gonna watch this for a while. Like, this looks really cool. And that was kind of my intro into, this is cool. Can I do something with this? And then when I started playing with it, I was like, I could start selling stuff. It very quickly morphed, and I discovered lathe work. I love lathe. I love the laser. I love, trying to figure out how to make files work. And everyone sits there and they're like, well, it's not traditional woodworking and you're doing too much on a computer. And I'm like, yeah, but that's really hard work.
Right.
Like, you don't have any clue how hard that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of, my dad, he loves doing a project based on what tool you buy next. And I kind of benefited from that because he's like, I really want a CNC machine. And I'm like, I could use that. Like, okay, let's do this. And it took me way too long. I was too intimidated. It took me, I think, a year after we got it. I was like, I don't know. It looks really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started using it, I was like, oh, I can crank stuff out on this. I'm good. But yeah, I kind of runs in the family, kind of not maybe the way I do it. I think I told my dad, I said, I think granddaddy would be like, why is there color and glitter in the workshop? Like, what is going on right now? Especially when I do a glitter blank on the lathe and it just like looks like it's exploded everywhere. I had to tell my dad once. I texted him, I was like, don't come in the workshop. I need to clean first. So I think he's getting used to the colored shavings, the glitter. I think he's getting used to it now. And we really enjoy kind of feeding off each other down there. So he definitely helps me out.
Awesome. So, I mean, it sounds like, did you then from the get-go, like you started selling things, like it just took off and you became?
Yeah. So I immediately started selling stuff, kind of put up an Etsy shop. Mm-hmm. It took a lot for me to finally sign up for my first show to sell in person. There was a lot of personal stuff that went on in my life. My brother passed away, and I think that was kind of I need to do this. Mm-hmm. I need to try. He would want me to try. And so I signed up for my first show, and I think it was 3 months later I did my first show. And that was when things really took off, and I really enjoyed the selling aspect and talking to people about what goes into an item and how to make it and all of that. And it kind of just morphed from there. And I started on Etsy. I'm still a little bit on Etsy just for search engine stuff, but I very quickly after they went public was like, I need my own website. So I started that, and now I almost primarily all of my business is on my website.
Amazing. Well, first of all, I'm sorry about the loss of your brother.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes, it's never easy losing a family member.
No, it is not.
So my brain is all scattered. For one,
that's okay.
because I potentially, it's not even like, there's just potential that a CNC could be coming into my life. And I know. And so like, I'm really excited. So my background, I have a degree in manufacturing technology with dual majors in design and automation. So like I learned CNC and like learned old school G code and had to like really be able to like read through it, make sure it was making all the right cuts and everything like that. And so I learned that in college, and then I personally haven't touched a CNC basically since my college days. And we'll just say it's been a minute since my
Well, first of all,
college days.
kudos to you for knowing G code, because I know what it is. I know how to look at it, but I could not have written it from scratch. So kudos to you for that. And you will find today's CNCs a whole lot easier.
Oh, I am sure. And I mean, I paid my way through college, basically taking like AutoCAD job after AutoCAD job. So like,
that's awesome.
I know how to 2D model and 3D model and all of that. And so when like this kind of came on the horizon, or I started thinking more about it, I was like, because the reality is like my furniture business is not successful. It's just not successful. That's the reality of like my world. And so I'm like, if I really want to like be working for myself and get out of like working for somebody else and all of this, I was like, I really want to kind of go like the automation route so that I can like be cranking shit out. Yes, like crank it out.
Trust me, that is always on my mind of like, can we get the time limit even lower on the CNC? Yeah. Can the time, run time go just a little bit quicker, especially when I got to crank out things that maybe take 2 hours, and I'm like, I have 2 weeks like between shows. I'm like, we gotta go.
So I mean, part of my brain, like I totally, and I'll probably just like, now you're just be forewarned, I'm going to be messaging you like all the time.
Please do.
Because I'm already in this mindset of like, I totally understand the work. I really do. I think I definitely learned that in school, but then also like my day job puts me into like manufacturing facilities and watching just like the programming process, and like all of that takes a lot more time than anybody realizes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have people at shows all the time, and they're like, oh, this doesn't look like, oh, my husband's a woodworker, he can make that. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Right.
Sure.
I know somebody posted a show TikTok this weekend of somebody saying that, like the husband being like, I'll make that for you. And her comment was like, yeah, but will you really?
I would like more wives like that when I have people say that. I was like, oh, I can make that for you.
Right. It's like, but will you really? Anyways.
I've heard all of it at shows.
I'm sure.
All of it.
I'm sure. Yes, I've had men like get down and like look under and see all my like joinery and stuff to see like how I'm doing it. I'm just like,
I literally have men every single show, and I will have one, at least one, who as soon as they ask, who are you selling this for? And I say, I'm the woodworker. It's like a light bulb goes off over their head, and they're like, oh, we're gonna get her. We're gonna get her. And then it's like, let's ask all the questions we can find to catch her in a lie. And they'll start asking about the type of wood and what tools I used and what were the processes and how did you do XYZ? And I just rapid fire shoot it back at them. And then they finally reach a point, every single one of them, of like, crap, she might have made this.
Right.
And then they don't even admit anything.
They just walk away. I know. Yep.
It's like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Nice talking to you.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's what's kind of like, I've been like already being like, okay, should I start creating files? Should I start like, working?
Start creating those files, because seriously, I did that too. I started creating files way before I started even actually doing anything on the CNC, until I finally worked up the courage to, okay, this is a big, scary machine, especially for someone who didn't start machining.
Right.
And do the files. Get excited, because that gets you excited for then using the machine.
So here's the next question then.
Yeah.
Because there's so much you can do, right, with the CNC. And
so much.
And especially since you have both the CNC and the laser. See, here's where my thing is. I'm like, I know I'm going to get the CNC, and then I'm going to be like, but I need a laser too.
Should I have gotten the other one?
But it's like, are you making all, it feels like you're doing all your own custom designs.
A lot of them are my own designs. There are a few that I sit there and I'm like, I can't make this any better, and I pay commercial fee to use. Very few. All of my CNC work is my own. And the only thing that I may use other files on is the laser so that I can mass produce stuff, because man, I have no degree in digital design. I am self-taught on Illustrator and like all of the software. So I basically reach out to YouTube U and I'm like, let's figure out how to do something.
Right.
And I know none of the terms on actually how to figure out to do these. So it may take me a couple days to figure out what I'm even trying to say I want to do. And then I find it in a forum, like buried way deep down. Digital design is hard for me. It's a very hard concept for me. As much as I would love to be able to draw, I just can't. But then I don't know how to translate that to digital. So I'm slowly getting better. I started over 3 years ago, and I'd like to say my digital design has progressed a lot in that time. I definitely know how to do things a lot quicker now, and I know all the shortcuts. But digital design, it's the one thing that I think holds me back from making even more.
Yeah. Hey, Pond Squad. I would like to give a big shout out and thanks to this week's sponsor, Rockport Works. They offer safety footwear that suits people's occupation and lifestyle by incorporating performance, safety, and style into every shoe and boot. Each shoe features a slip-resistant outsole and a toe cap varying between steel, alloy, and composite. Other features such as electrical hazard and shock protection are also available depending on your safety needs. So Rockport delivers extraordinary technology-based comfort using the latest advances in construction and design to create both modern and classic shoe styles. So whatever the outfit, they've got you covered. Their goal is to support your style, to take you from work to leisure and everything in between. Try Rockport Works for yourself and change the world without changing your shoes. Now, they offered to send me some boots, and I said, hey, look here. I got lots of boots. I got plenty of boots. I really, really, really need a shoe that's going to work for me out in the workshop. Because right now, if I don't feel like wearing my work boots, I'm wearing my tennis shoes. And not only is it hard on the tennis shoes, those aren't really the best to wear protection and safety wise out in the shop. So they sent me a pair of their True Stride work shoes, which are these slip-on shoes that have a zipper on them, and they consist of moisture wicking micro mesh liner and a leather upper, and they've got this nice little cushion in the heel that really is helpful for my lower back personally. They have these shoes available in sizes from 6 to 12 in both M and W widths. I went with W because I've got a wide foot. And I'm just going to let you know. So I went ahead and ordered my standard like 8 wides, and they do run a little bit big on me, but I love them even more for that, honestly, because that makes them easier to slip on and off. So I just slip right in, head on out to the garage, do some work, come in, take them off, don't track sawdust all over the house. So it is fantastic. The shoe, besides being super cool and comfy, also meets all ASTM safety standards and requirements. All right, so if you want to try out a pair of the True Stride shoes or any of their other work boots and shoes, head on over to Rockport Works and you can use discount code Freeman 25. That's Freeman, FREEMAN 25 to get 25% off of your purchase at checkout. So take advantage of this super sweet deal for listeners of the pod and head on over and check out Rockport Works. All right, let's head back into the episode. I mean, I follow you, so I see like the trays and like I love your rainbow.
Thank you. I do too.
Yes,
they are my favorite line.
Yeah. But I haven't seen like I don't see you necessarily like cranking out signs or that kind of stuff. Is that?
I think signs are just such an oversaturated market with laser makers. I'm a part of a lot of Facebook laser groups, Facebook CNC groups. Signs are just one of those things that I see people and they're like, oh, we're selling hundreds of signs a month. And we put one out on Facebook Marketplace and I paid off my laser. And I'm like, I don't know quite how much I believe that because I can't sell a sign to save my life. And there's so many people that sell. It's such a trend right now. Those farmhouse signs with the words and the phrases, and they're everywhere. And that's the problem, is they're everywhere. I want to be something that people haven't seen at a million booths before they get to me.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, my thought was like, because I've started doing some research, because my thought is like, in this area where I'm at, like what other businesses could I serve? Because I feel like beyond just like an individual person like buying a one thing off of me, like getting in with the businesses, and we have
wholesales are important.
Yeah, and we have a big like art community here, so like a lot of like artists, are selling their own stuff too. So I was like, I don't know, I see, like, I totally understand where you're coming from, like, yes, like the farmhouse signs and stuff like that. I feel like there's like a ton of those, but like I was thinking more like company commercial
signs. Yeah, we have where I am in Cincinnati, there's a couple different makers that have lasers and have really big ins with companies. So I kind of go more the wholesale route, where I'm not doing the one-off customer stuff, but I work with like wedding venues where once a month they send me the bride and groom names and I do custom cutting boards for them where I laser engrave it. And that's kind of my income besides the one-off things it shows.
And that's really smart too. Like I've had instances where I've gotten in good with like realtors, and like that space is like something that you can really get into as well.
Yeah, especially when the market is as good right now as it is in the housing market. Yeah, those real estate agents are buying stuff.
Yes. So how do you, I mean, so you've gone the wholesale route and stuff. Like, how did you even figure out like where to go, how to find business?
Still kind of tiptoeing through that. I got really lucky with my first wholesale customer. I went to a women entrepreneur meeting right before COVID hit, and it was just a event that they brought women together with women who have really successful local businesses, and they talked about finding your ideal client, finding your marketing niche, finding all the ins and outs of business. And even though I have a business degree, like I don't know ins and outs of small business, and so I figured it didn't hurt to meet other women entrepreneurs. And I was the only maker at this event, but there were a lot of women who owned wedding venues, who were wedding photographers, all sorts of things. It was really cool to meet all these women, and I actually made friendships with a couple of them, and that's how I have wedding venues that I work with. And from there, that kind of built my confidence to be like, okay, let's reach out to some places. So I'm still nowhere near where I need to be. I need to reach out more, but
well, I mean, it's the networking, right? And
yes, networking is hard, especially in a COVID world.
Yeah.
In a world where, like, I'm sure you understand, we work from home.
Yeah.
And then it's like, how do you get that networking that people get at a corporate job? Like my boyfriend before COVID happened, works for a big corporation, and he's like, oh yeah, so-and-so at work, getting together with them. And I'm like, what's that like? Like, how do you just like go walk up to a random person in your job and be like, we're friends now? Like, I don't know. My cat is my best coworker. Okay. He wins employee of the month all the time.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I worked in corporate America, and funny story, unless this stuff starts taking off, I'm going back to corporate America. So that's
I never found my way into it, even though I tried.
that was my reality. But I would say yes, like there's pros and cons to all of that, right? So some of the pros is, even for an introvert like me, I think what COVID has taught me is, even as much as I really enjoy spending time with nobody else but myself, even I need like the occasional human interaction.
We all need the human interaction. I miss my weekly trivia nights with friends and all of that kind of stuff. Like that's the number one thing I miss in life right now.
I mean, besides like the, interaction I get with my kids is like teachers that drop off and pick up. That's about like the extent outside of my 4-person family that I get.
I've honestly thought about joining one of those like local workspaces for all the people who work from home for themselves. I've thought about doing one of those subscriptions where I get like a couple days a month and just go do my digital design surrounded by other people and see what happens. Maybe maybe in the off season I'll start doing that.
There you go. I mean, but that actually, I think it hits on a point. And I mean, almost obviously, I talked to all makers on the podcast. So, and quite a few of them, it is their full-time gig. And so they are home working by themselves all the time and isolated. And I think the pros to that is I don't do well being told what to do. So it works that I tell myself what to do. Yes, I was not in the military for a very good reason. But again, the not having, I mean, I think that's what makes things like Workbench Con, like the magic that it is because it's like you're finally around people who like, they don't even have to do exactly what you do, but they make. And so it's like, they get you. And I don't know about you, but it's like, I come back with like so many ideas of what to make just in like talking to everybody. So I don't know. It's like, I wonder if is some benefit to your point, like the co-worker spaces or even going to maker spaces, even if you already have all the tools, just to like have that creative like bounce back and forth.
It definitely was one of the highlights of the maker space, was having people to talk to, seeing other people's projects that obviously we're not copying, but we're sparking ideas and talking about, like, oh, I don't know how to do this, and just sharing information and wisdom was really awesome. And just sitting there and, okay, fine, the machine has to run for the next hour, I can just sit and talk to people. It was really great. And while I miss that aspect, I don't miss the aspect of the machines being broken all the time. That was what sparked me to buying my own laser finally, was when the machine, I'd get time and I'd get there and they're like, oh, it's broken. I'm like, okay, bye. Like, I'll sit and talk for a few minutes, but if I'm not getting anything done, I'm not staying. I do appreciate that. And that was where I took my first CNC class to figure out if it was something I wanted to do. And then, I came home and I was like, hey, Dad, this is what we made. And I'm not quite sure about this because like, this looks like crap. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, that was wrong. That was wrong. That was wrong. And you needed a better bit. And that sucks because you didn't use a good bit. And I was like, good to know. It won't all look that crappy. But yeah, I mean, maker spaces are that great place where you get to learn new techniques and meet new people. And ours had classes for everything. My dad, actually, he's retired, and the makerspace has this plan thing with his former employer where you can get money for continuing education if it's something that you can make a living doing. I mean, some people were like, oh, we're going to take golf lessons. And the company was like, not quite what we meant. But my dad went and took all the classes at the makerspace, and he usually took them before I did and was like, hey, try this one. These are good. This guy's good. This person knows what they're talking about. Maybe this one doesn't. But that's what I like about him is I could learn something from anybody. We have everything from embroidery to the CNC machines, plasma cutters, and the full workshop, which if I need a drum sander, it is not in my basement. So that does get me over to the makerspace.
Yeah, we do have a makerspace in my area as well. And I was a member and was going and using machinery, and then COVID. And then when
like that's just like a yep.
Yeah, it was like there was like 6, I think I paid membership for like 9 months and didn't go at all because Like, I'm like, I'm not going into a space where like these, there's potential for other people to be walking around with no masks and all of that. And then also they were like, they had kind of converted the space. They were making like face shields for like a lot of the like, because it's also a university town. We have a university hospital. So they were making like face shields for all the healthcare workers.
They were making PPE for all of the hospitals. Okay.
Yep. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to get in the way. And I'm also not going to go get breathed on and get the COVID. So
trust me, I understand. I'm glad I stopped going before COVID because that would have been a very hard decision for me. There are some days though that I'm still like, I kind of think I want to go back just for the camaraderie, but then I'm like, I don't have time to talk anymore. Like I gotta crank stuff out at a ridiculous rate now that I just don't have the time, especially when I'm working until like 11 or midnight at night and they're not open that late.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, so like, is your dad your coworker sometimes? Is he?
Dad is kind of, I mean, let's just go ahead and admit, this is a full family operation. Mom waxes and oils just about everything while I'm doing something else. Dad is basically why isn't this working? Engineer, I need you. He's taught me everything I know. So when I don't know something, I go to him, and it's often a phone call upstairs going, can you come downstairs? I need your help. I'm lucky enough that I live with family right now. So I share his workshop, and my tools have just been added to it. So if I had wanted to do this and had to retrofit a shop by myself, I would not be where I am right now. I would not have any of the tools. I wouldn't have the ability, and I'm very thankful for that. He definitely helps me a lot in the shop, and heck, he adds project ideas all the time. He's like, what if we do, like, he's got a project downstairs that he's like, I'm going to create the CNC file for it. Let's see how it goes. And then there's the boyfriend the boyfriend, bless his heart. He does so much sanding. It's not funny. When I am in crunch mode and there's a show in a week and none of the CNC pieces are sanded, and of course, none of them are like just a straight circle that my orbital fits in and we're done. He is down there hand sanding edges and corners and using the Dremel. And I mean, he, bless his heart, he's wearing my old pink RZ mask and my pink safety glasses. And I finally bought him some ear protection because I'm usually running the CNC while he's down there doing it. And we can spend hours down there not saying a word to either one. And I'll be on the CNC, he'll be sanding. And this is definitely I don't think you can do this without family help. I mean, I see people at shows all the time that show up by themselves and set stuff up. And I'm just like, I don't think I could do this without my family. My mom helps me at shows. She's my person that if I need to go to the bathroom or step away, I can, because I have someone that I trust to watch the booth. And the boyfriend is kind of starting to do more of the shows. He's now kind of like pumped. He's like, yeah, let's do this. Like, let's do 2 shows in one day and I'll do a show. And we tried that and it went well. He's like, so let's do more. I trust him though, because I mean, he's my number one hype person, and he definitely does the marketing at shows better than I do, because I feel awkward talking about my own product. So he's better at that. So I don't mind giving him his own show. It's definitely a full family. I mean, the German Shepherd is in the shop too, so she's now honorary shop dog. She's the emotional support animal of don't stress out too much. It's okay.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely full family affair.
Yeah. I haven't done anything with like a serious cannot be moved deadline for a while. I'm really lucky. Yeah, I'm really lucky. Usually the clients I get, I'm pretty upfront, and I'll be like, I'm telling you it's this time frame, and then I'm also guaranteeing you at the end of this time frame, I'm going to tell you I need more time.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be.
Tell you the deadline isn't really the deadline.
Yeah.
I would love that right now.
Yes.
Especially with holiday season coming up. Holiday shows are just like, they're madness. They're absolute madness. And shows aren't still where they used to be with COVID. There's just not as many of them this year. And those that are there, they're trying to do, spread out so there's fewer
Yes.
vendors. But I'm lucky enough to have some really amazing every month shows here in Cincinnati that I get repeat customers every month. And there's always, they have a huge following, so there's always thousands of people coming through, and it's always a good weekend. This year I started branching out, trying new shows, and man, there's some difference between Cincinnati and some other shows, some other cities. So I started branching out within Ohio, and then last 2 weekends ago, the show I was just at was in Virginia. So that was fun. I got to see family. I've never had family come to a show before. They're all so spread out in the US that like getting to them is at least 6 hours.
Right.
It was really nice to have family show up to a show for the first time. I've always kind of watched from the sidelines other vendors who they have all this family showing up, and oh, it's so good to see you. And I'm like, oh, I want that.
Yeah.
And so it was really nice. Like, it just filled my heart so much to finally have that show where cousins are showing up, and my aunt showed up, and it was really fantastic to have people there.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, I gave up shows a long time ago now. If I get this CNC, I probably
might be back
because I could do smalls. I gave it up because it's like after like the 5th time of moving full on furniture, I'm like,
your items are a little big right now. Oh no, trust me, every time I do a show, I look at my mom and I'm like, why didn't I do something really small and lightweight? Why do I have wood that I need an entire pickup truck with an extended camper top on it, and I need 2 extra strength dollies just to maybe make it so I only break out in a full sweat, not a full double sweat.
Right.
I literally take an extra change of clothes to shows so that after setup, I run to the bathroom and change my clothes so that I don't look like a hot mess.
Yeah, that's smart. No, that's smart.
Wood is heavy. Wood is so heavy.
It is so heavy. And like you said, so like, because my kiddos are still not as small as they were when I did do shows, but when I did do shows, they were super small. So the best way my like wife could help is keep the kids home and stay home with the kids so that they're like not underfoot and asking me why 30,000 times on the way to the booth setup and all of that.
How old are they now?
They're 8 and almost 6. So
perfect age to start integrating them back into shows, because I'm telling you, booths that have kids in them, they're making money like hotcakes. No one can say no to an adorable kid. My niece is 2.5, and let's just say when she's old enough, I'll be like, you want to help Aunt Christy at the shows? Like, let's go.
Yeah, I could totally
for an hour.
I could totally see my almost 6-year-old now just like walking around the booth and being like, and my mommy made this and she made this.
Those are great skills though. Yeah. And when they get old enough, they can run the cash register, and that's a great life skill. And there's a lot of stuff kids could learn from being at shows.
Yes. It would be my son who would totally be like, I'm not going. I'm staying home and playing on my Switch. That would be his.
I get that. And it's hot outside. No thanks.
Exactly. But yeah, so it was me, and it was me moving like large pieces of furniture. 30,000. I couldn't do it by
myself either. No.
It was like, okay. And that whole bathroom thing is legit. Like,
yes.
I'm like, I didn't even think about that till I'm like sitting there. I'm like, I really gotta pee.
Yes, it is like my boyfriend, when he does shows by himself and he's getting ready. Right now I'm prepping for 2 shows the day after we get back from a week-long Disney trip. So I'm like, okay, so we go to Disney, we have 24 hours, and then we both have a show separate. And I'm like, okay, so I got to prep stuff for him, but I'm also like on him right now. Like, you need help. Get with your friends. Who's helping you set up? Who's helping you to tear down? Who's coming for lunch break so you can pee without taking the cash box to the bathroom with you? That was the number one thing the first show he did. I was like, you are not, like, what are you going to do with the cash box? And you have to pee. He goes, I'll take it into the bathroom. I was like, you will not. I think his mom heard me all the way from Upper Ohio and was like, I'll come help him. So I even had the boyfriend's family helping on that show.
There you go. So do you think, like you said, you've got some like monthly ones that like have repeat customers coming back to your space every time? Do you think there's a time in the future you get away from shows if you've built like this following?
I would love to. My ultimate dream would be have a storefront shop combo. That would be the ultimate dream. Space is expensive.
Yes, it is.
That's like the number one. I mean, what keeps anyone from doing anything? Money. I would love one. I mean, right now, my space that I'm working in with my dad is very cramped. A lot of times I'll set up my tables for shows in the garage, and that's the oiling, waxing station, because there's just no room in the shop. I think that keeps me from doing a lot more stuff, is just not having room. I would love a space, and I've actually looked at some, just dreaming, like what else did all the rest of us do during COVID when we had nothing to do? Like we started dreaming.
Right.
I was no different than anyone else. I'm like, I got a lot of time on my hands. Let's research box trucks. Let's research, like that was another thing that I was like, man, it would be great if I went to shows and I didn't have to set up every time. Right. What would it be like to roll in with a box truck and pop the bottom down and people can just walk in and all the shelves are already up? And I was like, this sounds amazing. And then I was like, and that's expensive.
Yeah.
That is still very high on my dream list. A lot of shows around here like love mobile units. That would be a much closer dream than a storefront. I would love to be able to just take the mobile unit and go around town and be able to show up at coffee shops and show up other places and not have to do the pop-up and the setup, because a lot of my display is hand set up every single time. So I have a shelf unit that's made of pipe and wood shelves, and the whole pipe ladder, I have 2 ladders and then the pipes go across. That whole thing with a hex key needs to be put together every time, and it's heavy. And it's a 2-person job. Like I could never do it by myself. So a box truck would be like the number one thing, but it would need an AC unit in it. Like, let's be real.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that would be my first dream. And then my second would eventually be a shop to go with the mobile unit, because mobile units are hot right now in Cincinnati. They're just really popular because they can just, a company can be like, hey, come set up for a day in front of our shop and in the parking lot. And coffee shops around here love that kind of thing. So I would really love to be able to do that and not be tied to just monthly shows, and be able to have the income maybe in the middle of the week too. That would be great.
Yeah. My dream for a long time, and I don't know, it still kind of is to like eventually, I totally want to do a bus conversion someday too. To an RV type thing, but I also
videos.
I know, but I also want to like make it so like the back door is open and there's like all my power carving stuff, and like just like be able to pull over on the side of the road and power carve, and like
be like, hey, I've got inspiration out the window. Let's do this. During COVID, I went down that rabbit hole of bus conversions, short bus conversions, RV conversions, van life. I went so hard down that rabbit hole that I follow a lot of them, and I'm just like, this is interesting. My boyfriend is like, we're never doing this.
I feel like
I'm like, I don't necessarily want to do it. I just find it really entertaining how they can fit so much stuff in a small space.
I feel like your boyfriend and my wife would get along, because I was sitting at like the start of COVID and like going into like our 3rd month of our kids being home, and like I'm teaching them and she's working from home, and my work had gone to pretty much nothing. And so like I was like, seriously, why can't we just buy an RV? Kids are learning from home anyways. I'd rather be learning from home like on a mountain in Colorado,
somewhere really pretty.
Yes.
Like, why not just have a good view? I knew people who literally packed up and went and lived somewhere for a month. Or I know another maker who went and lived in Montenegro for 6 weeks because she's an artist and can do her, she's a watercolor artist, can do it anywhere. And her husband works from home. And I was like, I am so jealous of you right now. I wish I could pack my laser into a suitcase or my CNC into a suitcase so I could go do that.
Yes. Yes. I'm
That would be
totally.
the ultimate fun, but yeah, my boyfriend is like, why? He has a
Mhm.
big pit bull and he's like, that's just cramped space.
Yes. I'm working on at least talking my wife into it for when we're empty nesters and the kids aren't home. I'm like,
Ooh.
come on. Like
At
she's
least take like a week-long
yeah,
trial trip in like a
yeah.
rented one.
They're
We have a
actually
place here
really
that you can rent.
pricey. They're really pricey to rent.
Oh,
They are
are they really?
yeah, they're like
That's a bummer to hear.
they have like a nightly price and then they
Okay.
also have like a price per mile you drive. So
So they're basically a U-Haul. Like, come
yes.
on.
And so it's like, I mean, because I like really want to do that when we do like a cross country trip versus flying. I'm like, let's make a like thing out of it.
You
But it
can pull
gets
over whenever.
exactly, but it gets so expensive. And I'm like, who rents these just to go to a campground 30 miles away? Nobody.
No, I want to go on the trails and
Yeah,
find the campground that no one else is at.
exactly.
Okay, well then I have a feeling you and I are just gonna have to take the road trip and we can leave the significant
Perfect.
others at home. Done. We'll pull one of those little tiny U-Haul things with tools in it so that we can
Yes.
work wherever.
Yes. Exactly. So you kind of like you talked about it a little bit with your at shows getting the like that one guy who's gonna show
Yeah.
up and like question you. But in general, like as you've been taking this journey, especially coming from like a marketing business like school
Mhm.
background, like what's that been like to be, I guess, like female in this space?
Hard. Really hard. And I know you get that.
Mhm.
I am often questioned whether or not I know what I'm doing. I get questions about what tool is this? People trying to trip me up. Just this past show that I did, there was a wood turner at the booth caddy corner to me, and he was talking to another woodworker there about CNC machines, something I know a little bit about since I
Right.
use one on a regular basis and operated. And I kind of leaned out of my booth, and in my back of my head, I was like, Christy, this is going to go horribly wrong. But I kind of put my 2 cents in and just kind of was like, hey, I heard you talking about XCNC. Maybe look at this. And I asked, I was like, what are you planning on using it for? And one of them looked at the other and went, oh my God, a woman talking woodworking, and literally walked away. And then the other one actually stayed there just because it's his booth and he had nowhere to go. And then as soon as I walked away, the other guy came back and was like, she's a woman. What does she know? And I'm like, you do realize that my booth is only canvas. I can hear
Right.
everything you're saying.
Right.
I get it a lot. I get who are you selling this for? Your husband or your dad?
Mhm.
I finally started wearing shirts that say I make pretty things with power tools, and I still get people asking. Last show, I had my first woman ever ask who made it, and that was equally frustrating.
Mhm.
I feel like we as women it's harder to get off the ground. Prices aren't respected. I
Mhm.
get that a lot. I will, at every show I do, like when I go to the bathroom, I'll take a lap
Yeah.
before I come back. And I don't really stop at anything too long, maybe to look at other woodworkers just to see like what they're doing, what their price points are. And their price points are already double, triple mine. And I could never ask that price because I think people see woman and they don't think that we have all the knowledge that men do.
Mhm.
And I kind of say that to my mom a lot. I'm like, if I was a guy, I could sell this for double the price. And that gets really frustrating, especially when I'll make something that no other man woodworker has ever seen. And they'll sit there and be like, oh, well, that's easy. Well, wait, how'd you do it? And I'm like, well, if you have to ask how I did it, we're not having this
Right.
discussion.
Right.
And I have learned it's weird. So the younger male woodworkers are totally fine with women being in the space.
Mhm.
It's the old white guys that
Yeah.
have the issue of us being in the space. And I have made some great woodworking friends. I really don't have all that many women just because there aren't many of us, but made a friend of a woodworker who's about my age at one of the shows that I do. And then funnily enough, I was in the cardiologist's office having a stress test. And the guy that was doing my stress test was like, hey, I'm a woodworker too. And he contacted me on Instagram after, and he's like, I'm sorry, this is weird. If it is weird, just ignore this.
Right.
And he's like, I totally, like, we were so busy doing the test, I didn't mention, like, I'm a woodworker too. And I've actually done some laser stuff for him now. He's local and he's really cool. He's sponsored by RZ. I'm like, how did I not know you were local and here and all of that? And it's been really nice to have other local woodworkers to talk to, but I am always the only woman. Which I get the question a lot of, what does your husband think of you doing this? And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not married, but thank you for you know, assuming.
And assuming then I get a lot male on the other end. I mean, in your case, it is correct, but it does not always mean that it's always correct.
Exactly. Like, and they always assume, and I'm just like, can we get away from that? Like, and I've had people ask, like, not even the who made it, but where'd you buy all this? Do you want to talk raw supplies or my time? Or
right.
I just, it's one of those things that in the beginning, whoever was doing the show with me, we'd place bets on how many times it would be brought up. Now it's kind of almost irritating, but it's something I have to deal with. And I've now kind of adjusted and learned to adjust how I speak to people at shows because of that. And if it's older men who walk in the booth, it's not just a, hey guys, how's it going today? Just to, you know, be friendly. It's a, hey guys, how are you? Let me know if you have any questions. I'm the woodworker and can answer them. And I just like drop that right off the bat. And I'm like, there is no question here. Don't even ask me. And let's just put it out there.
Yeah.
I picked that tip up from a woman welder, and she saw that I was another woman in a male dominated field. And she's like, I don't let that shit slide. She's like, I tell them automatically, I'm the welder. Let me know if you have any questions. And I was like, I love that. I'm the woodworker. Let me know if you have any questions. Yeah. It gets a lot of people not asking. And it's one of those things that it's just, I really didn't understand how hard that would be when I started. I knew that there weren't many women. But before I started doing shows, I really didn't understand the reaction people would have to that and why it's such a strong reaction.
Yeah.
I still don't understand that.
Hey makers, today's episode is sponsored in part by toolmomstore.com. At toolmomstore.com, you can find any and all tool-based merchandise for all genders, all sizes. They've got mugs, they've got shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. I have one of the shirts myself that has the hashtag woodworker on it. And I also have a couple of the mugs that define what and who is a tool chick. So super excited with the merchandise that I have. I know that you will be satisfied as well. And also great discount for those of you who listen to the podcast. At checkout, if you enter the code MAKERMOM, you will get a 20% discount off any of the merchandise that you buy. So that's just toolmomstore.com. All right, let's head back into the action. Well, it's still that broader public, right? Like I've had this conversation on the podcast, like, and I do want to separate out actually like maker community versus woodworker community, where I would say like maker community, I feel is very supportive.
Yes.
You know, hands down, way more than any other like community of craftspeople. Woodworkers, I'm with you in the sense of like, at least in my local community, like I know of a few woodworkers, all but one of them are old white guys. And the one woman I know, she is an old white woman, and she actually treats me just as poorly as the old white guys. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You were made to pay your dues. Guess what? I'm not paying my dues. I just won't show up to your shit. Like, I don't need to deal with it. Like, not.
I literally looked into some woodworker groups in Cincinnati, and on the website, there's not a single woman or person of color. And I'm like, no, I am not. I'm not going to make this okay by going. Like, I can't.
Yep. So there's that difference. And then, yes, the broader like communities as a whole,
Yeah.
they're like, whoa, wait a second. Like there's
Yes.
somebody who's not just like a white dude with white hair who's making all of
Yeah,
this.
I definitely get the two different reactions of, oh, a woman made this, or the, oh my God, a woman made this. Like,
Right.
this is like, there's two ways it goes. And when the people are so truly excited about it, it makes doing what I do worth it. And it's one of those things that the woodworking community already has that divide between traditional woodworking and machine woodworking.
Oh, and
then
DIY.
on top,
like there's
and
another
DIY. And,
yes.
and then like add on top of that, you know, you've got, I'm already not doing true woodworking
Right.
because I'm not using hand tools and I'm using a CNC and a laser. And then I'm a woman.
Mhm.
And then it becomes, how's that little hobby of yours?
Mhm.
Even people I went to college with, I get the, how's your hobby? It's not a hobby. How's your job? Like,
Right.
how's your hobby? Like,
Right.
is your corporate 9 to 5? Is that a hobby? Like, mine's a whole lot more than 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I go to sleep thinking about what I need to do the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely I mean it is an uphill battle. I mean,
Yes.
that's, you know, why like this podcast exists.
No, this is why this is awesome, is it lets women know they're not alone. And I love that, because man, when I first started, you know, it was hard. And then I went to Workbench Con and saw all these ladies and met you, and it was amazing. And I did get the occasional at Workbench Con of, oh, you use a CNC and a lathe, you're not a true woodworker. And I was shocked that people would say that to me. And I'm like, aren't we at a woodworking? Like,
yeah.
But then I find people that I'm like, okay, they get me, they understand. And it really, I didn't realize there was a divide in the traditional woodworking and what I do until I went to Workbench Con. I guess I was in my own little bubble.
Yeah, it's
Afterwards,
I mean,
I was like, oh.
Yeah, like I said, and then you bring in like DIY. So I've sorted out that difference just in the guests I've had on the podcast. So like, because I call anybody who creates something where nothing was before it, like a maker, right? If you create something out of nothing, like you're a maker. And so I'm gonna talk to like the woman who like started DIY remodeling her house after like having her 4th kid. I'm going to talk to her on the podcast just as much as I'm going to talk to the person who has a MFA and studied like traditional woodworking and furniture making. Like I'm talking to both of them, and to me their stories both matter.
Yes.
But it I don't know, it's the same, I guess, to me in the and you may or may not be aware of this, but in the queer community, we all divide ourselves up into like our silos. And then we like push hate at the other groups within there. And I'm like, really? Like, we're kind of like towards the bottom.
Yes, I have some friends that are in that community, and they're like, I don't understand why we have to hate each other. Why can't we all just rally together?
Yeah. So to me, it's the same thing. It's like, you know, woodworking as a craft or makers as a whole, like, we should all just
are a dying breed. And I wish that people would just come together and be like, we're all really cool.
Yeah.
We all have really great abilities and we all have really great ideas. Let's just promote each other, love each other, support each other instead of what we do. And it'll be in any community. And it never makes sense to me, because especially like women who think competition is the woman that's doing the same thing as them. And I'm like, but that also means that there's room for both of you to be doing what you're doing. And I mean, people don't do exactly what I do. Like, so I don't see the problem.
And even if they did, like, you're one person.
If we both have customers, then what's the problem?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I have actually still find myself in that trap sometimes, like on social media, especially if I see like another woman like got some big deal, whatever, that I would die to have. Like I instantly start like in my head tearing her down, and I've come to the point of like stopping and being like, what the fuck, Katie? Like, no.
I'm right there with you.
You know?
I do it too, especially when it's someone who does something very similar to me. And then I sit there and I'm like, but why? Like,
right. There can be more than one of us.
It's really hard not to compare, especially when you're already a minority in the group. And the other day, actually, I sat there and I was like, I bet you men don't do this. I bet you men in this community sit there and think that they're, you know, some of them, God's given gift.
Yeah.
And they don't have to think about competition.
No.
Because there isn't any.
Right.
They all, like, especially when I go onto YouTube and I'll try to find something on woodworking or makerspace. And men collaborate like no other.
Yep.
Women don't. And that was shocking to me, a very shocking realization the other day of like, why aren't women collaborating more? Or why aren't men collaborating with women?
Right.
We're good. We have just as equally good ideas.
Yes. Yeah. There was another podcast I was like listening to and kind of talking about the dichotomy. And it's because women are still functioning from a headspace of scarcity. And men are still functioning from a headspace of world is my oyster.
Yeah.
And so that is why. So like, I mean, personally, what I do when I find myself like starting to do the whole tear down, I stop myself, I go to that person's page and I cheer the fuck out of them for the work that they did, you know, because I'm like, that's the only way I'm going to break the cycle that's within myself that's doing that. And then having things like this podcast, like it intentionally helps me amplify other voices and really focus on like, yes, I want to do really well, but guess what? I want all of us to do really well. I want us all to rise.
We need all women to do well.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I try on the accounts that I do follow. I mean, I follow both men and women, but I do comment and like and share way more on women's because it makes a better difference.
Yep.
They need it because men have way too many men already following them who, you know, they don't need the boost.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously everyone needs the boost, but I feel like women just need to be held up a little bit more. So when I am in my comment mode, I'm always commenting and liking other women makers posts way more than men.
Yeah, I'm constantly like also searching out new female accounts and especially new women of color accounts. Like I am damned to make this Instagram algorithm learn that this is what I want to be served.
That this is acceptable. That doesn't need to be all the same.
Yes.
When you find those awesome new women, send them my way because I will absolutely follow too.
Yes.
Sometimes that's hard to find the new makers. I mean, I'm not that big of an account. I only have about 1,000 followers. And heck, I definitely did a dance when I reached that 1,000 a couple weeks ago because I'd been dancing around it for like months of 999, 995. What? Like, what? So when I finally hit it, let's just say my cat thought I'd lost my mind. I'm dancing in the room and he's looking up at me like, can I just have my dinner now? Like, what is going on? I think we need to do that. I mean, it's so hard to grow Instagram for anybody these days. And if you weren't one of those makers that got into Instagram when it was easy, when it was chronological, when a like was a like and it mattered.
Right.
Hard. And I have a marketing degree in master's degree in marketing, and I can't figure out this damn algorithm crap. There isn't an algorithm. It's just whatever Instagram wants.
Right.
I sit there and I'll log on, and I mean, I think we all follow those accounts that are like, here's the Instagram tips, those accounts.
Yep.
And I'll log on one day and I'll be like 10 to 15 hashtags. And then I'll log on the next day and be like, it's best to only put 3 hashtags. I'm like, which is it?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, well, guess what? It's getting no hashtags today.
Exactly.
And then I cannot for the life of me, you have figured this out better than me. I feel like I'm too old to do reels.
Oh no.
Reels, and I hate showing my face on social media.
No.
I hate showing my face. And I am so bad at doing a reel that it takes me hours that I don't have. And I'm just like, I don't know how to do this. I feel too old. I don't know what's going on. I don't know the terms. And then I sit there and I'm like, I'm 33 and I'm officially 33 going on 80. Like, what is going on?
Okay. Yeah. You can't use that excuse. I just turned 40. So if I can do a reel, you can do a reel.
Your reels rock. I can't figure them out for the life of me. And then by the time I finally figure out like a song that's trending, I'm like, oh, it's not trending anymore. I don't have enough time to get on it when it's trending and actually make the reel before it's not trending anymore. I don't know how people do this.
Well, I will say what really actually, like, I was really excited when Instagram got reels because I had been on TikTok for a while and
Okay.
I was actually really loving TikTok. I was loving TikTok because I figured out how to tell a story in 8 to 15 seconds.
Ooh, I struggle with that.
So, I mean, but I had until then, I had, you know, in my first few TikToks, quite a few of my first few TikToks are horrible, but it's like
Progress.
but it's like if you just do it every day, you start to learn from it. And so I was trying to take what I was learning from TikTok over to Instagram, and I was having some success in just putting it on like regular post videos. But then when the thread of TikTok was going to go away, so Instagram came out with reels, I was like, yes, like, because then I just have to do the work once. Like I just have to video it once, and then, you know.
Well, you can still video it once and then just post to both.
I know, but like, you know. So if you come to Workbench Con in February, we will sit down and chat, and I will get you to do a reel while we're there.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I'm one of those that even though that's what my degree is in, I'm really bad at following through on Instagram. And even if you look through like my main page of Instagram with all the posts, like I can go weeks between posts because I feel like what I do every day is very similar, very monotonous. And I'm like, people don't want to see the same thing 5 million times. And then how can I make that different? I struggle with that. I
get it.
Really struggle with social media.
So I can say I totally get that because I was in the same mindset, and I can still find myself in the same mindset. However, only like 1 to 3% of your following actually sees what you post.
True.
So like
that's a let's feel bad about this for a second.
but it's good in one way because it means you could post the same thing 5 days in a row and not the same person
see it.
And different people are going to see it. The second thing is you're too close to it. So you find it like, well, of course
I find it boring because I did it all day.
Right, because you did it all day. And so there's like nothing to learn about it. But you have to remember the people who are coming to watch that don't do it every day.
Yeah, and I've started definitely taking way more behind the scenes videos, behind the scenes photos. I'm just not clicking with because everyone always says like you can't just post a photo for posting a photo. And they're like, it needs to bring the audience some type of like add something to their day, like give them knowledge or give them. And I'm like, I don't have knowledge to share.
Yes, you do.
I sit there most of the time and I'm like, this is so basic. I don't know I don't know how this is helping anybody.
Well, you do now.
I'm working through it.
Yes, you do know there's somebody now. There's a person named Katie in Iowa who may potentially be getting a CNC, and I would love to see all of your boring CNC.
Then I will start posting way more about the CNC. It's funny because one of the other local woodworkers, after I met him, you know, through the stress test and all that, he realized I had a CNC and he's like, oh my God, I'm buying one. What do I need to know? And I had this moment of like, someone came to me. And I know that sounds so like bad for me to say, but at the same time, like, I don't think people quite understand, like, as a woman in this space, when a guy is asking you for information, how like just it makes you feel incredible.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like, oh, I'm validated. Like I belong in this community. That was the first time I've had a guy ever ask me for advice on woodworking. And man, that put me on cloud 9 for like a week.
You just need to have them keep like occasionally pinging you with questions and then.
Yeah. Hey, can you just like make up some questions every other week? That'd be great.
Amazing. Well, Christy, we're like at the end of our time together.
Yeah.
So I want to give you a chance though to let everyone know how they can find you, follow along with you, all that good stuff.
Well, you can come follow along my social media journey that I'm still trying to figure out at Wilkerson Handmade on both Facebook and Instagram. And then my website is wilkersonhandmade.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad we finally got to do this.
Yes. All right. So again, that was Christy of Wilkerson Handmade. And I'll include the links on how you can follow along with Christy in the show notes for today's episode. You can find the show notes by checking the description on your podcast app for today. Or you can, if you're watching this on YouTube, check the description box down below. Lastly, head on over to freemanfurnishings.com/podcast, and you'll find today's episode along with all the previous episodes and their show notes. Please make sure to follow along with the podcast over on Instagram at Crafting a Revolution. And if you like today's episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, especially on iTunes and Spotify. And when I'm not making podcast episodes, you can find me designing and making furniture, home decor, art, all kinds of oddball things at freemanfurnishings.com and at Freeman Furnishings across all the social media platforms. I am active on a daily basis over on Instagram at Freeman Furnishings and pretty close to daily over on TikTok at Freeman Furnishings. So come on over and say hi. All right, it's the end of the week. I hope you all had a great week, and I hope you have lots of making in your future this weekend. As always, let's go craft a revolution.
Got something they wanna say. Solution for the toxic masculinity. Pollution is the constant evolution of a broken